Ryan James here. Um, Today I want to talk about the correlation between ADD and addiction. The reason I want to talk about this is because I have just gone through over 31 months of intensive um, recovery from alcoholism. This is my second attempt at recovery. During the first one, I sought medical assistance. During this one, I've also sought mental health and medical assistance. Um, and it was brutal. It made me feel like an idiot. Made me feel like, I'm just an addict. I'm just a drunk. And that being said, even if I was just an addict and just a drunk, I don't deserve to be treated like a piece of garbage. A lot of these things have to do with childhood trauma. Um, at the end of the day, most addicts and drunks are victims. And not only that, now it's come to my attention that there's a large population of addicts and drunks who are simply people that have ADD that have been misdiagnosed or slipped through the cracks. Um, I'm not trying to be an ego maniac here or anything like that, but I am highly intelligent. I've taken the IQ tests to prove it to myself. I was waiting to join Mensa because I realized why I wasn't getting some of these questions. It was simply the something was wrong with my memory going from one thing to another, and I realized why I wasn't missing it, or why I was missing it. The problem I ran into, and the reason why I never really looked at ADD closely, is because I could hyper focus on things. When I got interested in something, I was interested in it nonstop. That being said, before I had to re-examine my entire life. I did the 12 steps over and over and over. I've become a vegan. I've quit sugar. I've become a physically extremely healthy. My mind, when I'm not angry, pissed off at the system, dealing with bureaucracy, is extremely clear and able to absorb knowledge very, very, very quickly. And I think this is a huge, huge problem for our country, for Western civilization, for the whole works. Because once I started looking into the ADD, I started realizing this was solvable a long time ago, like a very long time ago. Um, and I mean, there's a ton of other issues and a ton of other ways that the system has dropped the ball. And I'm just going to say it, it's failed me. I went back through my past and made amends for the things I've done wrong, and I've made mistakes, of course. I'm no saint. I was looking for something in life. I was looking for a way I fit in, a way to be happy for myself, and the system wasn't designed for me. Fair enough. The world isn't fair. I think one of the greats said that. But at the end of the day, here it is that before I became an addict, I discovered when I was about 8 years old, I couldn't read very well. Wasn't really interested in it. Didn't have any reason to read. It looked like the most ridiculous thing ever. It wasn't until a teacher, Mr. Learn, and I had a few good teachers. I had some real horrible ones, and he gave me The Hobbit, and I'd seen part of the cartoon. It took me about 3 months to figure out how to learn to read and able to visualize in my mind. Um, but I was addicted. After that, I went straight to The Lord of the Rings. I cried and cried and cried after that. But after reading The Lord of the Rings, someone had recommended to my mother at the time that, because I wanted something more like that, that Greek mythology was similar to The Lord of the Rings. So we went to the library. I read every book on Greek mythology. And I was done with Greek mythology, and I wanted something more. So it was on to Roman mythology. Read all Roman mythology. Then it was on Norse mythology. Read all Norse mythology. Then I got bored of mythology because I realized they were very similar. There was a common denominator there. I went on to astronomy, then it was psychology, philosophy, and then ended with metaphysics. Reading was my thing. But I'd become quite isolated. I wasn't making many friends with these sort of interests. So at that point, I think it was onto the drugs, alcohol, drugs, smoking, because I needed something. There was something like I mean, I wasn't a balanced person. I lost interest very easily, and even with school, I've even put my finger on why that is, and well, hopefully I'll get back to that because I don't write anything down and plan anything because, well, ADD, right? And again, this is my own self-diagnosis, but I've looked at it, and there's no doubt about it. And if the doctors can't seem to pick up on this, this is just another failing of our medical system. And I see through the research on YouTube, lectures, this, that, and the other thing, I see that people are talking about how bad the medical system is failing and how bad our system is failing people, and how our jail system is getting jammed up with it. The amount of addicts that simply have been misdiagnosed and are self-medicating, because this requires medication, or at the very least treatment, because certain situations trigger this enormously, and I'm in it right now. I've figured it out for myself. I'm in the medical system. I'm trying to get disability, not because I want to go on disability, because I want to solve this problem and I want to get back to life in a way that's going to actually work. Without this knowledge, I was stumbling through life, going this way, that way, wherever which way I would go. I mean, I've been a jack of all trades. I've had 30 jobs. I've lived in 30 different places. I've had failed relationships coming out my ass. My life has been hard. It has not been easy. So for anyone I screwed over, or broken hearts, or this and the other thing, I'm sorry. But I have a condition. I have an order. And, yeah. And if I've pissed you off, I apologize. Yeah, if I'm in my ultra focus on something, I become a little bit lame because that's all I want to talk about. And I want other people to understand it. But at the same token, I mean, when I get into my zone, the connections that I make in my mind are amazing. My pattern recognition is off the charts. And I guess the biggest thing here is that this didn't have to be this way. My life didn't have to be such a huge struggle. I mean, I struggle with the adoption thing. I mean, on top of all of it, I mean, give kids that are adopted, give them some therapy, whether or not you think they need it, because you don't know what's going on in people's minds. There's a reason why adoptees, ADD people, have these huge rates of addiction, of suicide, of being institutionalized, running through the criminal system. It's not because they're criminals. It's not because they're crazy. It's because no one is taking the time to give them the tools they need to live a normal, happy, productive life in an area that's going to work for them. And at the end of the day, I'm not looking for sympathy. Although, a pat on the back for making it this far, I have to give myself, because I've become extremely isolated through this entire journey. And I didn't have the information about ADD. Had I had that information 20 years ago, if I would have had that information as a child, I could have figured this out. And this is what pisses me off, because I'm giving these doctors as much as I can, and they're not recognizing it. So either they're not being trained properly, or they don't want to help. I mean, I don't know what the problem is here with the medical system, but I'm in it right now, and I can tell you, when you get into it with ADD, it aggravates the shit out of you, and it shuts you down. Your mind just becomes overloaded, and you can't think. I've had to shut out almost everything. It's been a bit of an advantage. I mean, I focused on the 12 steps. I focused on spirituality. I became almost a mystic. Well, maybe a little bit of a mystic, an initiate for those of you who know what that is. But I mean, now I'm focused on the ADD. I'm focused on getting treatment, and I'm focusing on trying not to let my impulse control fail me, because that's a problem. Impulse control, when you do things that you shouldn't do, or self-destructive things, because you're not thinking. Your emotions have taken over. There's a connection that's been done with emotions connecting this, where your mind doesn't think properly. This is a disorder. This isn't the person being willfully destructive or willfully criminal or any of these things. And I mean, the social anxiety. This is the other thing, having trouble being around people. The hyper focus that I mentioned, where you focus on something to the exclusion of everything else. So if you're sitting there wondering why your boyfriend's playing 16 hours of World of Warcraft, maybe there's some issues there. So all these things need to be better known, because if they are, the people that have this problem are not fucking stupid. Pardon my language. But without knowing it, I mean, let's face it, the public face of ADD is that you're thinking of these hyperactive kids. And we've seen them, and I'm not overly hyperactive. I do get anxious, my mind goes crazy. When I'm in trauma or in anger mode or depressed mode, my mind shuts down. It's almost not that it shuts down, it's a whirlwind. So it debilitates me from acting because there's too many things going on, and it's just you're faced with thousands of options of what to do, and then you go into the moving mode, you quit your job, you kick your girlfriend out, whatever it may be. You drink, you drug it, you try to stop it because you know what, it hurts. Right now I've got a blazing headache because I'm dealing with the medical system. I'm not even going to talk about that today. I'm going to go into this at full length because I think my journey should start being documented. Because we can't do it alone, and if this isn't known, it's just going to cause more and more pain. And I don't want other people to have to go what I went through. I want people to have the hope I have now, even though I still have to deal with a system, with this rage and insanity going on in my head that is slow and seemingly stupid. Stupid. Because pull out a piece of paper, do the tests, check these people out, and quit treating them like garbage. Because we're not garbage. Okay? And probably in some cases, the person you're dealing with has a person trapped behind their eyes there that's smarter than you. And I'm not saying that as an egoist, but I am well aware I have an high IQ, and when I was sitting in my classes in school, I knew that I understood things better. I simply, when it was time to push it out onto the paper, how do you push out a huge whirlwind of ideas that you understand, but come out too slow? So again, this is only me realizing it for the last week, maybe, that this has come together and being certain of it a few days ago. And at the end of the day, I mean, I still am now dependent on people that I've completely lost trust in. I have no faith in the medical system at all. And for me to get treatment, I need to go through this. And I do want treatment. I could get my own medication. I've been clean for 31 months. Yesterday, I took an antidepressant pill that they diagnosed me in 10 minutes with depression. Obviously, I'm depressed. I mean, duh. But at the same token, I didn't take them. I took one. It made me feel crappy. I didn't like it. But yesterday, my mind was so overloaded, I took an antidepressant that was prescribed to me. And at the end of the day, it was making me feel kind of suicidal. So mental health is a big, big problem in this country. People are walking around with trauma, all these sort of things. I don't know if, I mean, obviously funding is a problem, but education, because we absolutely need to know this stuff. Get it on the news. Educate people about these things, because if they know, maybe we could save some time. And when the doctor, you know what, maybe the doctors need to listen to their patients a bit more, because my impression after being sober for 31 months is every time I talked to a doctor, he thought I was trying to get high, or thought I was a liar, or this, that, and the other. And they can go fuck themselves. Okay, because I'm not a liar. I never was, even when I used. I didn't feel ashamed of it. I needed it. right? Did I overdo it? Yeah, absolutely. I was having brain shutdown. So at the end of the day, I'm putting this out there, like I did with some of my adoption videos, because people need to feel like they're not alone. They're not going crazy. That there is hope. I hope. I hope there can be some treatment. I hope there can be some education. I hope the bureaucrats can get their heads out of their asses and start helping people, because people that want to help, people that are honest, people that are good people, are getting pushed into the streets, getting pushed into jails, these sort of things completely unnecessarily. So please share this with people you think might have having similar problems. But get onto YouTube, get on the internet, look at these lectures, research it fully for yourself. Okay, because I had no idea that these things were all interconnected. And had I known, there could have been people that got hurt that didn't need to get hurt. There could have been relationships that could have been salvaged. There could have been a lot of feelings spared here, there, or the other. I wouldn't have had to go through this mental anguish my entire life when I'd have to look at paperwork that upset me and made me unable to do it. Because it literally, when those emotions take over, uh, it shuts you off from your intellect. It shuts you off from your acting capability. And this is what I've been suffering for years. And I've been trying to tell people when it gets to crisis mode, but nobody's listening. So, God bless you if you're going through what I did, because it's been a nightmare. It really has. Um, I've certainly seen some amazing things. I've met some amazing people. I've done, some amazing things. But at the end of the day, it can destroy your life. And I'm sure it has destroyed many lives. And I hate to see that happen, because I care about people, and I want people to be okay, and I want people to be happy. Because right now I go out into the world and the social anxiety is pretty to the roof, because no one's happy. Everybody's pissed off. Everyone's angry. Their tempers are out of control. And then I absorb that. And then it shuts me down, and I make poor decisions. So now I'm trying to do the right things. I'm trying to stay calm, uh, clean and sober, live a healthier life, and try and get a little goddamn support out of my country, because I can tell you this at this point in the game, I'm not a big fan of Canada with their great medical system. Yeah, if you have any sort of mental issues, don't come here, because there's not help, and you can slip through the cracks. So BC government, get your fucking heads out of your ass.